Every artist has a backstage. It's a place where our thoughts transition into reality. It's a place where we're most open, where we share, collaborate, and get ready to present our passions. So get ready to explore this unknown world of art and hear the stories, the emotions, and the passions that make, drive, and influence our art. Grab a seat, make your favorite drink, and step through the curtain into the Backstage Lounge. I wouldn't say you're chasing it, but I would definitely say that that's something you're aiming for.
Right.
You're aiming for this perfect alignment of like skill, but then also your individual emotion, whatever you want to call the thing.
Right.
And then it's met with the audience getting the same thing from you. And there's like these three little parts that come perfectly together where you're just like, I'm playing the best I can play. I'm feeling the best I can feel.
Right.
The audience is feeling it. And you're like, oh.
It's perfect. Yeah, that's the feeling that like I strive. You know, I'm sure you agree that we strive to go for it every single time we play.
It's weird. It's like intoxicating.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Backstage Lounge. I'm Andrew Fisher, and look, I know it's been a minute. Life happened. A lot of it. And I promise I'm going to get into all of that. But right now, I couldn't wait. I just had to get this episode out. So here it is. I need you guys to meet this person. And that is Seth Kalina. Now, Seth is 19 years old. He's a tenor saxophonist out of Cassopolis, Michigan, and also a sophomore at Michigan State studying jazz. Now, I want to be straight with you. I don't use the word phenomenal lightly, but that's what he is, not just as a player, but to be honest with you, as a person. I got introduced to Seth a couple years ago. We were putting together the Stevie Wonder tribute concert. We were bringing it back after COVID, something we've done for years and years. We had lost our good friend and saxophonist Christopher Keats during COVID. When we brought the show back, Glenn McFarland, who plays drums, said, "Hey, I know a guy." Now, I trust my guys, so I said, go ahead, bring him in. And then this kid walked through the door. And I could tell you, I was not prepared for what I was about to hear. And that's been the experience working with Seth ever since. In this conversation, we get into what it really feels like when everything on stage clicks at once. The skill, the emotion, the audience, all of it landing in the same moment. He talks about what it's like studying under Walter Branning at Michigan State. We talk about trust as the actual foundation of jazz. Not just technique, not just theory, but trust. And I also talked to his mom before this interview, and I read something to him that she had written, and I'll let you hear what happened next. One more thing. Seth and I are playing together at Merriman's Playhouse in South Bend on Saturday, March 28th at 7:30 p.m. If you want to hear what this conversation sounds like when it's making music instead of just talking about it, that's the night. Link will be in the show notes. All right, it's so good to be back, and that's enough from me. Here's my conversation with Seth Kalina. Seth, thank you for coming on the podcast. We're live, so we've been going for a second. So
cool.
I think hopefully everything's working.
Yeah.
So welcome to the Backstage Lounge.
Thank you.
Which is in my wonderful home.
Yes.
Backstage in my house.
It's awesome.
But I appreciate you coming. I've been wanting to talk to you for a while, honestly.
Yeah.
And mainly to do with as much as I'm amazed by how young you are, and I'm amazed by you have amazing skills. But honestly, when I come across a musician or someone who I can see do genuine things, I'm going like, man, that's interesting. And I feel that you have that, you're doing that. You do things in a way that it's more than just mimicry. It's more than just like, you work very hard, obviously, but it's clear that you're doing a lot of like interesting things. So I just was like, hey, and I've worked with you, and I've been wanting to talk to you for a minute because I work with you so much.
Right.
I work with you enough where I've gotten to, experience, the things that you do, which I will just say this at the top of this. And the reason why I am so impressed by you is because of the context of meeting you. Now, I will say this. Whenever Glenn or Bruce or whomever in the inner circle says, hey, I got so-and-so's going to come in and play, I've gotten to a place in my life where I don't ask anymore.
Right.
I'm like, okay, cool. See them, whomever it is. And then I think it was Glenn. I was like, yeah, there's this guy who said he's going to come play. Because was it the Stevie show that we were doing?
It was the first time I played with you was the Stevie show that was at the Library.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was the first time after I think Chris Keach passed, right?
That's right. That's the first time after Chris Keach passed. And that was the first show that we did back, which was hilarious because I didn't even advertise it that it was a TV show. I just literally
it was
just,
like a surprise.
Surprise. But no, it was one of those moments where Glenn was like, hey, I know this guy who can come play sax. I was like, and I'm going to say this not because I was like, I don't care.
Right.
I know Glenn wanted to know, like, I don't have to think about it.
Right.
So I had no context whatsoever of who you were, what you looked like, how old you were. I just knew that there's a guy named Seth who was coming, and then here comes you. And I'm going like, okay, yeah. And then it was an instant, like, and once again, there are some times that I've experienced where I've had this happen to me, where someone hears about me and they don't see me until the time comes when I come to sing or do the thing.
Right.
And then before I do what I'm supposed to do, they go like, "Hey, what's up? You're gonna prove yourself?" Oh, really? You're the person everybody talks about, huh?
Right.
Are you gonna? Okay, so genuinely speaking, I didn't have that thought whatsoever. So I didn't have any question on your ability whatsoever. But once you started playing, I was like, oh, got it. Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't even, I don't even know if I knew exactly how old you were at the time anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I was automatically impressed because from the jump, it wasn't just that you were good.
Mm-hmm.
So you were professional. You were very prepared, which to me is a big deal.
Yeah.
Honestly, because in this world that we live in, you know how it is. People aren't prepared.
That's true.
Yeah. So that is the context of us meeting each other. So thank you so much for coming. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
This is the most relaxed anything. So there is we could talk about anything you want. But normally how I open the show is I ask this question. Out of all the things that you could have been, you could have done anything. I don't know about anything, but
okay.
Out of all the things you could have done, why in the world did you choose, or was it chosen for you, your foray into music?
Well, I guess like going through high school, music was kind of the only thing that really kind of interested me. You know, to like do, like I wasn't big into sports, you know, I wasn't big into any other, you know, out of school curricular, you know, thing. And it really all kind of started in it was my sophomore year, I think I really started getting serious, you know. And then I took dual enrollment and I went to SMC and did their symphonic band and jazz band under Mark Hollingsworth. And,
so wait, you were still in high school when you went?
I was, yeah. It's the dual enrollment thing. I'm not sure if all schools or what schools do it, but it's like this program.
Right.
You know?
Okay. What year was that?
What year was it?
Yeah, when you went to SMC, I'm curious.
It was, oh gosh, I think it was. Well, if I graduated then, it was like probably around 2021.
21,
I think, or 22.
I wonder if I saw you. Anyway, so you're a sophomore and you're now so that's a continue,
right? Well,
oh my gosh,
yeah,
just a high school sophomore with college kids. Go fine, go for it. Keep going.
Well, don't get me wrong, I was like so nervous when I first started, but like you know, I had like you know people that are older than me in high school that were doing it that were telling me like you know if you really want to get serious about it, you should you know try and do this and try and get like a higher level music education. So I did I went there and I had a great time. You know, Mark is just amazing to learn from. You know, and in both the symphonic band and the jazz band. I mean, he's just amazing. But that's when I really fell in love with like playing music, especially the jazz band there, and like his cool thing that he does with he takes the kids for tour like after every year. Right. Yeah. It's like the Select Voices Choir and the Jazz Orchestra, and getting to go around and tour and going to different high schools and seeing you know all we did the show the last tour I did with them, and it was like. It was K through like 12, and it was in this gymnasium. Yep. Don't give me the jazz orchestra in this gymnasium sounded just like not great at all. Just you know, it's huge in there. Yeah. But you know, we had like kindergartners lined up like at the very front. You know, the you know big kids in the back, and man, just seeing those like kids' faces just light up. You know, when just something happened, like it could be like a big moment in the music. You know, like where it got really loud or got really quiet. Like they're all just you know seemed like they had such a good time listening to the group.
We'll keep going, but I have to ask you this. It seems you were very keen on that specific thing pretty early on then. Like there's one thing to most high school college folks when they are doing a concert
Mhm.
or performing, and I've had the same experience myself. I remember it myself. I am so fixated on not messing up that
Right.
I don't remember like, oh, this was the thing that like the reaction the audience had.
Right.
I'm curious. So you were keyed in. Can you describe what that feeling is like? No, seriously, that
Yeah.
feeling of like, do you remember any times that you did something that they reacted to?
That I did something that they
Yeah,
reacted
like if you
to.
did like a cool lick or something, they were like, "Oh my god!"
Well, okay. Well, there was this the last, like I said, this is still the last tour, same place,
Right?
in
Yeah.
this high school, and there was a feature song for me. It was Tank by the Cowboy Bebop tune
Oh my
Tank.
god.
Yeah. So this tune was just
Oh, it's not fair.
I know.
Oh
That
my
was a
god.
lot of fun when I was playing that
That's
tune.
going in the show notes, by the way.
Yeah,
That's
right.
being put right in there. There's gonna be a nice little area of like, here is one of the best anime soundtracks. Everyone, Cowboy Bebop. Here we
Right.
go. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah,
keep going.
that was it was a really cool tune. And then
Wow.
he gave me the alto feature part, but I was playing on tenor. So like, when I was shedding this tune, I was like, I was hearing all the alto solos and they're like getting really like high up there, like and I was like trying to figure out, okay, so how can I do this on my horn, my tenor?
Mhm.
So I was, figuring out all the altissimo fingerings and everything. And as soon as I got there, like real high, there was like a cadenza at the end of the whole piece.
Mhm.
I'll get way up there, and like all the kids are just cheering and everything. It was just it was fun.
For those playing the home game,
Yes.
cadenza just means that you just take the biggest space. You get the ending part of a song, and you get to do anything you want.
Right.
And if you're really good and you can use that to your ability to just show off in a good way, in a responsible way, musicians, in a responsible way. But oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
And was this like your first year with SMC?
Oh no, this is the last year
in?
that I went. So this would be
Okay.
oh gosh, I think it was my senior year, the end of my senior year, I think. Yeah,
In
I
high
think it was
school.
the end in high school.
Still in high school. Okay, got it. That was what I was thinking about. 'Cause that was
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
not fair. But no, I know, but that's something to be said because it's interesting like I said, you know this, the musician world personalities. There are so many different types of us,
Yes.
from really introverted people who just are really more about what they're doing and nothing else, which is totally understandable, versus the extremely extroverted one who literally needs the crowd. And
Right.
there are different angles and all in between. There are different types of things, but I've always been interested in those of us who get like, it's almost like I don't know how else to describe it than saying it's almost like that frequency when you get that perfect balance of your finger going over the crystal glass. And it's like that perfect where it's just the most satisfactory thing.
Yes.
And you're almost like to the point where I wouldn't say you're chasing it, but I would definitely say that that's something you're aiming for.
Right.
You're aiming for this perfect alignment of like skill, but then also your individual emotion, whatever you want to call the thing.
Right.
And then it's met with the audience getting the same thing from you. And there's like these three little parts that come perfectly together where you're just like, I'm playing the best I can play. I'm feeling the best I can feel.
Right.
The audience is feeling it. And you're like, oh,
it's perfect. Yeah, that's the feeling that like I strive. I'm sure you agree that we strive to go for it every single time we play.
It's weird. It's like intoxicating. I feel.
Yeah.
But you were feeling that at that point, because I think it's interesting that that's something that you can remember.
Yeah.
Vividly of the reaction the audience has.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Man, that's amazing. I think that's cool. And so you finish your senior year in high school. So what was that like for you going from high school SMC into Michigan State?
It was so different, man. It was completely different. The vibe, well, going to Michigan State, that's when, I was a full-time, well, that was my jazz studies. I was a jazz studies major going into it, and, still am. And just the, it was just completely different. The vibe of Michigan State and SMC, like these cats. I mean, Michigan State is by far, in my great humble opinion, one of the best non-conservatory jazz schools like in America.
You heard it here for
sure.
Oh.
In America.
In America.
Absolutely.
Wow.
I think, when it comes down to the faculty and it comes down to the courses and it comes down to like, how much the faculty really cares, then I really do believe it's one of the best non-conservatory conservatory schools.
Who's your who's your professor?
It's right now it's Maria Tarakubo. She was living in New York for a while, and now she's at Michigan State now.
Wow.
And before that, my first year, it was Walter Blanding, who was, basically, he is the tenor saxophonist of, living right now for sure. He's like, he was the first chair.
You see his
tenor.
name, you do this.
Yeah, pretty much.
See his name, you do this.
Pretty much.
Man.
So yeah, he was the played jazz at Lincoln Center for I can't remember how long, since the 90s, and he was a first chair tenor, and he was an amazing guy. And
what was that first day like?
The first day with Walter Blanding.
Yeah, how was that? You're going, here I am, everyone, from Southwest Michigan, coming all the way up to Michigan State, and then here you are in front of him. Like, what was that like?
It was nerve-wracking. My first lesson with him, I was so nervous. I was so nervous walking into his office. But, once I got in there and I started talking to him, and we finally caught a vibe and everything, and it was really, really cool. I mean, he's just such a wholehearted person, So he made me feel, right at home in Michigan State for sure.
That's cool. Is there anything you can think of in regards to what is one of the best? You don't have we'll not leave you at the top, but is there anything you can remember that he's given you, any nugget, any piece, either something that he said to you that your world finally opened up, or did you have something that you went working with him specifically you can remember?
Well, I would say that I think more of something that really stuck with me wasn't really about what it was, don't get me wrong. It was a lot of things about what he said to me, but it was but more so for me, it was about his actions and how he treated other people and how he treated other musicians and how he talks to people. That really made an impact on me. That's because I wanted to be that. I wanted to be how Walter Blanding talks to, anybody with the level of respect, and he's so positive all the time. We had this improv class last year, and he was just, there was not a single day that he walked in that class where he was just not in a great positive mood. So he was ready to teach every single day.
That is so honestly, that is so cool to think about. Especially because that's something I know of you, which is something I respect about you a lot, because you have always been very respectful, very courteous, very inclusive, very much open. That's something to me that is weirdly to say in the world of art, where you would assume that would be one of the more prevailing ways that artists would be, is probably one of the more scarce aspects of people, because the idea of working with people who are kind, aren't putting pressure on the people, or of course people who want the limelight, or who are willing to step on anybody else to get it, or working with people who will take advantage of you. There are so many interactions I've had to deal with where I know that I have to, just kind of close that part of my brain, lock it away so that I can get through this because so-and-so is saying this or training this way. And but to be in when you said that, I was like, that to me is one of the more prevailing things I know about you. And to me, that's the thing that I feel is the quality that I don't know about anybody else, but whatever someone would call success, I feel if there is, unless you're going to be, I guess, some weird tyrant and then bulldoze your way to the top, which people do all the time. I can't say it doesn't work because it works all the time. But still, I think the people that I feel the most appreciation from, or learn the most from, or experience the most interesting, wonderful moments with, are people who genuinely are kind, who are genuinely respectful, who aren't just respectful for the people, but most importantly respect the stage.
Yes, absolutely.
Which I honestly feel that you have that specific quality of you that is something that it was instantly like, this kid has it. And not the skill part you got is great, and your talent is amazing, and your chops are, I can sing those to the live long day. But the one quality that I have seen from you that I feel is really the thing I'm going, if there is anybody who I can see doing some really cool things, no matter how big or small, if I can see the heart that you have and how good you are with people, that just to me tells me, of course you have everything else, because that's the type of person that you are. So that's cool to know that you got that from your professor. So that was the main thing. So for you, what, just to ask, and maybe we can keep talking about this, but what have your experiences been? You know, because I know sometimes for me, the only way I've been ever able to get through crazy situations
Mhm.
is because I kind of keep that going no matter what. Because there have been times where it's difficult, and there are times where I want to grab somebody and go, "Ugh,"
Right.
like, God, stop making my life hard. And there are times where, and there honestly, there are times where I'm like, should I be more
Mhm.
of a
Yeah.
like pushy? Should I be more of a not kind? Like
Right.
there are times where I see the attitude people or the people who have the big personalities or the big egos. They're kind of like making it.
Right.
So what are your thoughts? I'm curious. What are your thoughts on that?
Um.
How do you feel about that? I guess I would say.
Well, I think that, for me personally, I think that I want to work with somebody. I want to hire people, and I want to play with people that are, the same, that have the same like levels of respect, like what you were talking about,
Yeah.
respect for the stage, and just being a respectful person, just in general. And those are like the kind of like the people that I want to work with. And and also the type of people that venues want to also work with for sure too. I mean, right.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
Yes.
that's just kind of what I think about that. I think like, I just want to be able to work with, cool people, because I also think that helps the music too. If you're working with somebody that,
Yeah.
that you're not really catching a whole lot of a vibe from, if it's
Mhm.
somebody that you hire and they're kind of just like waiting it for it to be done and over with, then I don't think the music sounds as good in the
No,
end.
it doesn't.
That's just my my opinion, especially with improvisation and jazz in itself. Like,
Yeah.
it definitely doesn't really sound as good as that in the end.
I don't think it can, because for me, especially in that context, even if it's not jazz, but even in the idea of playing with other people,
Mhm.
if you can't trust them,
Right.
if you can't look at this person and you have faith in them or believe them or trust them, that's some weird thing about music, I find, or art in general. I think it's probably all art has the same affect, but
Mhm.
there's something about, especially when with a group of people.
Mhm.
I think jazz probably is like one of the most dependent on that
Yeah.
specific thing of like, this group has to gel.
Yeah.
We have to agree. We all have to be okay with each other,
Right.
at least in the moment. Like we at least have to respect each other,
Right.
respect what we're doing, because if you don't, then I mean, you have witnessed it. I've witnessed
Yep.
it. When you see groups and people on stage, you go like, all right, that person's like the main person. Those people are just kind
Right.
of there. That person, like
And the audience can definitely tell too. They can tell
yeah.
more than anybody. Like, if anything, the overall picture of the group, is just,
Yeah,
it's
my
more
cat shows up, by the way.
Yeah,
everyone.
hi, kitty.
I have a cat. So his name is Atlas, and he will definitely just come. This is his domain. So the Backstage Lounge is really, we lease it from Atlas,
Yeah.
the cat. So if he wants to come, he will do his thing. Yeah. So yes, he's
Yeah.
here. But
So yeah, I mean, what was I saying? Yeah, no, the audience.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah, the
think
audience,
that they like they see visually, just as much as they can hear. And if anything, the visual, what they can see is more important than what they hear at some points.
Really?
In my opinion, like to some people, and it all depends on like
Yeah.
the audience, for sure.
True. Yeah.
But yeah, having like a nice visual like presentation of yourself and your group, and you like, even if it's something as small as like you smiling to like the drummer, you're nodding at the drummer, laughing at the other people in the group, like the audience can capture that, and they can catch the vibe that you're putting out.
How did you get so keen on that? I'm curious now. Like how that's a very specific understanding in performance that I don't really hear often, because we could talk about the thing that you were talking. He's going to be in your face. I just want you to know this is his place. But no, in general, like you're pretty keen on that, because that's something that most musicians it doesn't even enter their brain space,
Right.
about how my face looks, how I carry myself, and not just like carry myself like but you being in that space of understanding that. For example, I can already tell this part.
Yeah.
If somebody else has a solo, for example, me as the singer, if I'm up front, somebody else is soloing behind me,
Mhm.
I get out the way. But I don't
Yeah.
just get out the way. I look at them and I engage with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's a part of me thinking like, I want the audience to know that I am intently enjoying what this person's doing.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm curious, like is there a time where you started to realize this is something you cared about?
Yeah, there was actually.
Ooh.
I can say that right when I really started kind of thinking about that,
Yeah.
it was when it was one of the first gigs I played with my group, and my bass player, his name is Charlie Snyder. Shout out to Charlie Snyder out there because he's probably gonna
Charlie.
be watching this, you know. But my bass player, his personality is very energetic, and he puts a lot of passion into what he plays on the bass. And one of the first things that my mom has said to me, because she's not really too big on music or really kind of understanding completely about jazz, and that's
Right.
completely fine.
My mom too, by the way. But,
Right.
My mom too.
But one of the first things she said to me after my first gig was like, "Man, that your bass player sure is really getting into it. It was a lot of fun watching him." And these kind of comments, it was like, "Man, he seems like he's having so much fun on stage." So that's what kind of really made me think, like, yeah, I mean, the audience really cares about like the whole vibe on the stage.
Yes, it is. That's something that I learned. There is visual aspects to it that gives people cues. I
Mhm.
know you probably heard the saying in when you're in band
Mhm.
about if you make a mistake, don't show it on your face because the
Right.
person won't know that you made the mistake. And that is 1,000% true.
Mhm.
And every time it makes me laugh because people come up to me after I do a gig or something like, "Oh my God, you were so amazing." I'm going like, "Thank you so much. You don't know how many mistakes I made."
Yeah,
I'm glad you have
right.
no idea how many mistakes that I made. Because if you did, you probably would say I did a great job. Because I had no, I did a horrible job. But I did let you see it because my face was just doing this the whole time.
Exactly.
Like, I feel performing isn't just me executing, it's also covering up for when I mess up, which is,
Right.
I feel 50-50.
Right.
But
Right.
that to me is something that, those are if I were to be able to just, to like write down a script for everybody, like, here's how you learn how to do this.
Right.
Those to me are the things you I don't know, I don't know if you can teach anybody how to do that. It's something that you have to discover, I feel.
Exactly.
Because that was what happened with me, because I was sharing with you before we started about Sunday Night Jazz. That
Right.
to me was like my school. I
Yeah.
got music before, of course, through college and other things, but doing that regular show every month
Yeah.
he is just going to be, if I hiss once, he'll run.
It's
But I don't
alright.
want to hiss on the mic and kill it. But no, but getting that repetition, that's what I noticed, because it was not, and luckily for me, I had it regular enough, because you asked me this question before, like this was a while ago. You're asking
Yeah.
me about like, how do you learn to be like on stage and like banter and all these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
All I can tell you, since we're talking about it, is it's just taking what you said and then going way further with it.
Yeah.
So you're observing how the audience is in regards to your affect.
Mhm.
Now just take the same principle and start saying things.
Yeah.
Start talking and listen and look at how the audience reacts.
Yeah.
Because the one thing that I found out very early on is, for the most part, unless it's a very specific circumstance, which is like, I don't know, if I'm from Ohio State and I went to go play at Michigan State, probably ain't going to be going over well. So that room is not going to like me no matter what I do, because I'm from Buckeyes and they like, yeah.
Right.
So that's, unless it's that, for the most part, the audience wants you to succeed. They
Right.
want you. They're going to take what you say. The only times that you lose an audience is whenever you put something out that you don't yourself 100% believe in.
Right.
If you don't fully commit to something and truly, and not just truly like you personally like, but you've objectively like worked on it,
Yeah.
if you put it out there and you kind of half it, or you don't really have faith in it and you're just kind of like,
Right.
that's when the audience goes like, I'm not vibing with what you're doing.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it comes down to, for example, when people ask me like, what do I say? What words do I say? What jokes do I say?
Right.
It's like, I got to a place where I realized that I can take anything that I find interest in,
Mhm.
and if I'm willing to share with the audience, of course, you have to be thoughtful about how you deliver it.
Right.
But if I personally like am about it and I put it out there, the audience will vibe with it. For
Yeah.
example, one of the running gags on what we did at the show was, I have this very interesting belief that Back to the Future is a better trilogy than Lord of the Rings.
Wow.
So
There
very
you go.
strong. I get it. I understand. I totally get everyone. I understand. I totally grasp that what I'm talking about probably doesn't make sense. But you know what? Here's my thought. I just feel that Back to the Future is a better trilogy because it's a complete story that follows the story arc of Marty McFly from beginning to end.
Right.
And Lord of the Rings, as much as I love that story, could be finished if only Gandalf would have let the eagles drop Frodo at the volcano. Would have been done. Would have been over. We could have skipped everything, but it's fine. It's totally fine. Yeah, it's fine. Anyway,
Right.
so it was a running gag forever. And it was one of the things that we would just, and of course, the guys thought I was dumb. So every time it would get brought up, I'd be like, yeah, I really do like back. But because it was something that as a group, we all joked about, because it was something we talked about in rehearsal, and we just kind of said it during the show.
Right.
And people would laugh at that. People
Yeah.
would be like, because at the end of the day, and of course it would be in between changing songs. We would
Right.
use it all the time when, we want to change a song and someone needs to pull out a chart that they forgot to bring.
Right.
So they got to go, so we pull something out. And if you are passionate about it and you can deliver it in a way that's funny, that it's not just deliver it in a way where you're not just saying it,
Right.
but I have clearly I have a very strong emotion about it.
Right.
Clearly I said what I said about Lord of the Rings. Clearly there's something about them eagles that if all he had to do was just let him fly. He even said as he fell, he said, "Fly, you fools." He said it.
Right.
But anyway, sorry. That's a different podcast for a different day.
Right.
But genuinely speaking, like that to me is what I've experienced with the audience. If you allow yourself to take this idea that you just said about being able to understand that they watch you, because what your mom said is literally what my mom said. What other people, that's what my wife says. Because my wife, bless her heart, is not in this business at all. But she said that to me where she can identify. And that to me is a very basic human thing. I think that's what makes the arts what it is.
Right.
Because even if a person doesn't understand it, if they're able to enjoy it through you,
Right.
then they can. Because I know what we need to talk about right now. Specifically, jazz. Because jazz is one of the most polarizing genres, I think, still in existence. I think jazz and opera are pretty much in this interesting little world of like, why do you guys still do this? Why do you guys still participate in these extremely archaic, which I would, first of all, everyone, jazz is never archaic because it's impossible, because literally the point of jazz is that it's going to exist for all time because its interpretation based upon the individual, it can never not cease to exist, and jazz exists for all time.
Right.
But in that case, I want to ask you, what, in the same vein of, as we just talked about, understanding that people can enjoy jazz through you, what are your thoughts on that? Because I know that's something that, I don't know, you've probably heard of, people go like, I don't get it.
Right.
Or what is it? And how, like, what would you say to that person? Or what would you argue in regards to, like, why isn't this genre, to me, it's the most, I would put it next to like fundamentals of, like, if people want to point to the Greek era as like the birthplace of music theory, and we want to look at the era of classical music as like the bedrock of modern Western music, jazz is like if I would argue this, and I will go out to say it, if the blues is the grandfather of modern American music, jazz is like I would put jazz in the realm of like, you are the pastor of the church.
Right.
You have guided the flock of the rest of the genres. Without jazz, in my opinion, we wouldn't have rock, pop music.
Yep.
We wouldn't have country music. We wouldn't, like, there's so many aspects of what modern music is today, because if it wasn't for people who are willing to jump into Western theory and play and look at what you could do with these very 12 chords, kids. It's only 12. That's it. There's only 12, and you find a way to play those chords in a myriad of ways. But what are your thoughts on that? Especially, I hate to break it to you, you picked a genre that, some people would say, like, why would you pick that, Seth?
Right.
You could have been like Harry Styles, or you could have been like Charlie, what's his name? Not Pluth. What's his name? I think not Rock.
Charlie.
He's Wonderkin, who writes music all the time, who wrote I can't say any of it because it'll probably get copyrighted. Anyway, not important. But
yeah.
what are your thoughts on that? I'm curious.
Well,
Yeah.
I think, well, like I was talking about earlier, like how the audience like really captures like a vibe, from what the audience, what you're playing on stage. The jazz is so like, and when it comes to like playing bebop, there's a lot of highs and there's a lot of lows.
Right.
And the audience, I think, even though it's such a complex music to where like, you know, I'm just gonna say like a lot of people won't even be able to like clap on like the beats 2 and 4 to know if I mean, and again, there's nothing wrong with that either.
I mean, there is, but it's fine. We won't talk about it. It's fine. We still love you anyway. 1 and 3. We still love you guys.
Yeah, right. But it's. I think the audience just like really like. I think they get a kick out of trying to catch. And of course, like I said, this is all. There's so many different audiences. Like if you go play like down in Detroit, where people really understand and really listen to the music so much, and they're gonna catch more than just just what what they see visually, but they're gonna catch more of like what note choices you're playing and more things like that. But I think with the majority of like with just talking about as a majority of like like people listening to jazz, I have a feeling that they catch more of the highs and the lows and more of the vibe of the group and how they catch like people can be able to tell like if there's moments in music where it's dense, moments in music where it's really intimate, if you're playing a ballad and it has a really somber like dark vibe, like people will try and grasp that sort of aspect to it. So like as far as why play jazz, in this world, where jazz really isn't very, very well popular in today's age. I just think that jazz is the, like you said, like like the priests of like the church, like where you got your pop music and where you got your rock and your country music, that all rooted from jazz. And I have a lot of passion in trying to play this music that it's so difficult to play, and I have a passion where like I really want to try and nail it. I really want to understand like bebop and Charlie Parker and Coltrane and these people, like I want to try and imitate them and sound like them as much as possible, for if I ever have times where if I ever want to go like to New York and perform in New York or Detroit, and these strong jazz scenes, I want to be able to really impress these people that have been listening to music for a while.
You're impressing anybody who listens to you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's just the deal of it. But so what does it mean, now that you brought that up, what does that mean for you when you're going down the pursuit? Because I've heard you talk about you've done the work of taking, I mean, you were sharing with me not too long ago about how you would take solos and transcribe them.
Yeah.
Like how is that pursuit? Because I know there is definitely the aspect of like, you want to learn this.
Right.
Is there anything else beyond just like I want to tackle this mountain?
Right.
Or are there any other influences or any other like wanting to understand the mind of the artist?
Yeah.
Or what are some of the things you experience as you're going down the transcribing and going down these routes with these different jazz professors?
Right. Well, I think I didn't really ever start transcribing, since until my first semester, my freshman year at school, because that's what Walter Blanding really kind of taught me, and that's what I really started getting serious about transcribing, because he put it in such a way that transcribing music from these greats is so like it's so very important to add to your your bag of tricks, your vocabulary on the music. But I think it's really cool, and he was kind of touching on this too when I was learning from him last year, that it was very special to be able to have the opportunity to try and imitate and to try and play what these greats have played before, and exactly note for note, and like every single minute detail. That was the goal, to try and get perfectly when you play that that solo. So I was doing Johnny Griffin's "The Way You Look Tonight." I was talking to you about this at Merriman's last week. I was doing Johnny Griffin's "The Way You Look Tonight," and I was telling you that that was one of the first solos I ever transcribed, like as far as writing it down. And I use MuseScore, and there's like 4 full pages on my desktop where it's just full of just eighth notes. It took me so long to get, because
you do it by ear, don't you?
Yep, by ear, completely by ear. So, and trying just sitting down in the practice room and hitting spacebar and hitting it really fast again to try and like, okay, what was that what was the phrase right there? Because he's playing, The Way You Look Tonight. It's a really cool record. I recommend anybody, out there checking that whole record out from The Way You Look Tonight. A blow-in session. It was a blow-in session, and there's Coltrane on it, and I can't remember who else is really on it. I just know that Johnny Griffin and Coltrane are on it, and it's such a cool record, and he's playing The Way You Look Tonight at like and it's really, really fast. So like I'm trying not to slow it down, because when you slow things down in YouTube, it distorts the quality of the music. So like I wanted to try and catch everything that he was doing, the way he played these notes, the way he articulated them, the way, so that whole thing, and I was writing it all down, and it took me so long to do, because that was one of my first transcriptions I've written down. But I think it's definitely important writing down these transcriptions too. Just as much as learning them by ear, because if I wanted to look back and play the solo, I have it on my laptop.
You have it right there.
Exactly.
You just look at it. You have it written out.
Right. If I ever forget, it'll forever be like a feeling of muscle memory, because I've practiced it for so much. But if I ever forget, like, oh, what is this like cool like 2/5 that you just did right there, I'd be able to pull it up and look at it.
As you were transcribing that piece, did you find anything while you were there? Like, was there anything that you discovered, not just about the solo, but just in general, that you didn't expect to find? And what I was alluding to was, I was thinking that there was you've probably heard that solo, I don't know how many times before you did the transcription for it, and then there's the after part. So what was it like? You've something you've heard and listened to a ton, and then you got through transcribing it, so there had to be some difference for you. I mean, you could play it. That's a difference right there. Yeah.
Right. So one thing, what you were talking about, hearing it before you transcribed and after you transcribed it. I think this goes for about anything that I transcribe. It's like, oh my gosh, like what was he playing right there? It was like, oh, so cool. Like I want to play that, and then, you hear it, after you hear it like 2 months later, a year later, and you're like, yep, I know exactly what you did. Exactly what you know? Yes, that so it's like a feeling of like really just like, a feeling of not knowing before, curiosity and trying to learn it. And then after you learn it, you're like, yep, I know exactly what you just did, and I have it, So, that I think that's kind of how I think of it, hearing a tune, and then after I learn it, hearing a tune after. But and there's some points where I'll transcribe, it won't be the whole tune either. And I think that's important to know, like that. Whenever you're transcribing something, to not get caught up into it, and not feel like, you're trying to force yourself in a way to like, you gotta finish this, you have to finish this whole tune.
That's true.
So like trying to find, trying to skim the music down, trying to find just one phrase, that this guy, whoever played, and trying to learn that phrase, and even just taking it through the keys. I think that can be really beneficial. I think that can really stick with you for the long term, for sure.
It reminds me of, I used to grow up watching old kung fu movies, and there was this kind of aspect of like the hero would go and train with this monk somewhere, and they'd get this old manual and they had to learn it. Right. And then they'd come back later because they got beaten up by the bad guy halfway through the movie. And then they're like, I have this new skill that I have acquired, and I will be able to beat the crap out of you because I have this new skill. That's what it feels like sometimes. It feels like you because you took the time to learn this thing, you've now mastered it. I had the same experience when there was one of the Stevie shows that we did. We learned Stevie Wonder's Contusion. Yeah. And
it's so, I love that tune, man.
Lord, Contusion. That tune. That song.
Yeah.
Oh, that will test you if you ever want to play it. But it is the most amazing piece. I'll never forget and the reason why I dove into it is because I wrote the chart for it.
Right.
And so because I wrote the chart for it, I was going like, what the heck is you doing? And the mix meter and the chord, and just being able, and then once I got to the point where, because for example, there is the very famous guitar lick that runs to basically the entirety of the song that while I was doing the chart, I was like, for fun, let me see if I can write this thing out. Right. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I saw it, and I could see the different accents the guitarist was making. And then as soon as I got done with that, it was Mike Davis, best guitarist in the world.
Right.
That's right, Mike. Absolutely. I said it. Best guitarist in the world. Yes. I believe it. It was It was the most magical experience getting to hear him play that.
Oh my god!
And because I had
yeah.
done the work, it was like I got to appreciate just how much. Which, by the way, Mike is like, I had barely got through that. I'm like,
yeah, right.
the most humble bass guitarist I've ever met in my life. Oh, Mike. Anyway,
Man.
but when I heard him play it, I was like, I get what he's doing,
Yeah.
and it made me appreciate how much skill Mike had.
Yeah.
But I was like, I gained this bigger level of understanding of the music. Now, this for me transitions into your soloing, because soloing in jazz is by far, in my opinion, one of the most difficult things to do in music ever. And it has less for me to do than how good you are.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with knowing what to do and when to do it.
Yeah.
And still be able to keep it your own. I've heard you solo. And every time I've heard you solo, I never hear you do the same thing. I never hear you just like, because there's soloists I hear who just like, they have their 5 little tricks that they do.
Right.
Which is fine. Nothing. But hey, everyone, I'll just say this right now. My soloing is just my voice. So I can't solo anything else. So if you can instrument solo, automatically you win. Just letting you know.
Right.
But I'm just saying in the context for you that your skill in soloing is, you've heard everybody say like, you're old, you're wise beyond your years, you're an old man playing the sax, which is, I won't give you all the cliche stuff. Right. But what's it like for you when you're up there and you're given this space, hear your chord, hear your changes?
Right.
Like what goes through your mind, if anything, anymore?
Well, I think that it's more fun for probably me more than the listener to be able to, well, like what you said, like my goal is to not play the same thing, like over every tune, over every change, and that's where I find the most fun, like in the music, is like trying to explore things and trying to explore these ideas that pop up in my head in the music, and trying to explore that and seeing how far I can take it to really build a story. And sometimes it'll be melodic lines or these phrases where I have never worked out before, but sometimes it'll just pop up in my head in the music, because that's where I'm feeling for the vibe, and although along with these ideas are like things that obviously I've worked out before, but I think that's why I have the most fun. That's where my passion really lies, is playing with a really tight group, a really tight rhythm section, and really good people. And just as far as personality goes, great people to work with.
That's where we talked about trust before. I think that's one of the bigger things.
Exactly, yeah. And also trying to work through ideas and catching a vibe, and just going for it, and seeing how far you can take this idea, before you change up the vibe of the group. I mean, I think that's I didn't word it like the best way, but that's
great.
I think that's why I think.
Do you remember the first time you soloed?
Oh gosh!
How traumatic was it? How much trauma did you experience in that first time?
Oh my gosh! Well,
and I don't mean solo as in written on sheet music solo. I generally mean like your first. I don't know when that would have been.
Well,
like, here, Seth. Here's your first. Go for it, bud.
I can tell you 2 different experiences.
Yes, I need both.
My first experience, well, I was in high school jazz band. It was my freshman year, and I think my band director put me on alto. And I was well, to put in perspective, my jazz band at my high school was the front line. There would normally be 5 saxes in a big band. We had me on alto, a senior at the time on tenor, and we had a clarinet player. And those were
all your woodwinds?
That's right.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, and there was a a trumpet player and a trombone player and drums and.
So this was
this is the start to the high school Cassopolis. That's where I'm from. I went to school at Cassopolis.
Bigger program now, everyone. So hey, this was guest stars from this amazing. That's cool.
Yeah, so that's where the program started. And I remember it was like COVID year, it was 2020.
Yeah.
And it was the first time we were, trying to rehearse the music, and then I had a solo, and I was so nervous. I didn't know what to play. It was just like I didn't know what to do.
How'd you do? How'd it go?
I think I was so nervous. Like I remember like standing
you just
up.
Blacked out.
Yeah,
like, I woke up and my fingers were like, I think I played notes. Hopefully.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I remember my fingers really violently shaking. So
right.
so there was that experience, playing that. And actually, there's like, don't look it up, anybody, but I think there was a YouTube recording of the State Jazz Festival from Cassopolis that's somewhere probably on the internet. I remember that solo. It's not very good. I wouldn't recommend anybody looking it up. But anyways,
I'm so tempted. It's fine.
No.
I'll try not to find it. I probably will. I'll post it. It's fine.
Yeah, right.
I will definitely not put that in the show notes.
Oh no,
definitely totally won't do that.
Definitely do not. But anyway, so
best solo ever.
Yeah. So my second experience was well, I grew up in in Vandalia, and there was a bar and girl down the street, and it was my first ever open mic ever going to. And my dad knew the guy that was running the jam, whose name is Barry Clark, who I still gig with to this day. Great guitarist from Cassopolis, Michigan. And I remember going up to him because my dad knew Barry Clark from Woodwind Brass when he used to work there, and we would show up to jam. I had my horn, and I remember Barry walked up to my dad, and he's like, where's your guitar at? You want to come play? And he was like, actually no, my son here has his horn. So I get out my horn, and I'm playing this country music with this acoustic guitarist, and he basically just threw me out there, play whatever. I had no idea. I think I remember I was playing, maybe I found 3 good notes that sounded good in that context, and I didn't move from those 3 notes. It was like G, A, and B. That was it.
You know what? I will tell you this. I'd rather hear someone pizzazz me with 3 notes than just try to do everything and not do it well. Okay, real quick while I got you, just a reminder, Saturday, March 28th at Merriman's Playhouse in South Bend, the Seth Kalina Quartet featuring me. At Merriman's, it's a nice, cool vibe where there's real jazz, real good people, and real good vibes. If you're anywhere near Southwest Michigan or Northern Indiana, come check it out. Link is in the show notes. Make sure you get your tickets now. And also, the Backstage Lounge is back, and we're looking for guests, not just musicians. I want to talk to anybody who creates, anybody who performs, anybody who makes something and takes it seriously, whether you're in front of the stage, behind the stage, in front of the curtain, behind the curtain, musicians, photographers, dancers, directors, producers, sound engineers, stagehands, actors, authors. If you do it and you mean it, I want to sit down with you. And if you know somebody who belongs on this show, send them my way. Email will be in the show notes. All right, let's get back to my conversation with Seth. Okay, so I have 2 questions that I have to ask. So for the first one, do you remember that moment when, or was it a series of moments where you finally got up to do a solo and were like, yeah, I know what I'm doing now?
Well, I really don't think that I still to this day really feel that complete comfort with some tune. Well, it really, for me, it feels like the tune that I'm playing, I think it really helps me to know what the changes and everything that I'm playing over.
For sure.
So that definitely comes into effect. But I still feel like to this day I don't really completely know. I have obviously I have ideas. I have these melodies and phrasing, like decent phrasing wise. But I still don't feel 100%. As far as my soloing ability goes, like if that I know exactly what I'm doing.
You do a great job of making it sound like it, or making it feel. And I honestly, visually.
Yeah,
I think more than anything does not come across that way at all.
Right.
So, like for example, the last time I saw you was when we were at Marin's not too long ago. When you do solos, then what was going through your mind?
Well,
because I'm trying to remember some of the songs that you did.
It was I remember that Cherokee was called.
Yeah, Cherokee was one of the Cherokee.
Yep. And then I can't remember.
I
called Mr. PC last time.
You did Mr. PC. Now, is it because you know the song so well that you're just like, I know the changes are. This is in my wheelhouse. This is waking up, playing Street Fighter. And I already know how the moves work, so it's cool. Or is it like, is there anything in your mind while you're doing it like, all right, I know this is coming up, so let me do this.
Right.
Or are you just sitting there going like,
yeah.
Nothing.
Well, I think that it's kind of a combination of both. I would say it's a combination of muscle memory and kind of knowing what to play over the tune. Well, specifically, with Mr. PC, it's a combination of me having the muscle memory on, different techniques, different ways I'll go up, like the tunes in C minor, D minor for B flat, tenor. And I'll have these technique ideas, I'll go up the scale in like groups of 3 or groups of 4, And Mr. PC, it's just a blues, it's a D minor or C minor blues. And at the end it goes to it's like the minor, or the it would be the when it comes around to the 5 chord, it's actually the flatted 6 chord.
Flat 6.
So that's like, it goes from concert key, it's F sharp or G flat, and then it goes down a half step for like the 4, and it goes to that I'm trying to think theory. Yep, and then it goes to the 4 chord, and then pretty much back to like a normal blues form, but you have that flat 6. So when that comes around, the flat 6, I'll do some kind of out things, as far as out, I'll play like maybe like the in my key, talking in my key, I'll play like the A flat, A flat dominant 7 arpeggio going up and down,
Right.
And then kind of go back to like the home bass being D minor. I think that's kind of how I think about it, in terms of soloing over that, that tune.
So you're thinking of the arpeggio. You're thinking of like this is the chord scale, and I'm just basically, all right, here are my, the tones I'm going to play in this chord scale. The next is this chord scale. Next is this chord scale, and you're just kind of like, all right, I can play this. Go. You could hit a note and stay there, or you could do 16 or 8 note run up and down.
Yeah.
Or you could just do like I'm just going to go half step down from there to there. I know I'm going to land, because I think a lot of times people don't realize, I think soloing is more about how you land than anything else.
Yeah, very true.
As long as you can land on that tonic, you're okay.
Yeah, right.
As long as you can get back to B1 on that tonic, baby, woo! Whatever you did before, we forgot, because you cadenced, my friend. You have you've done what my ear wants you to do.
Right. That's very true.
But and this is the second question that I had, because it was a 2-parter. What would you say to anybody who came up, because this is something that I do know about you. You are actually and have instructed people before.
Yeah. Yep.
Which I have to dive into that. But what would you say to someone who asks you, like, what do I need to do to grasp soloing? Is it that I need to do the transcribing, as you talked about, where it's basically becoming like you need to see someone else doing it?
Right.
Pull it apart and do that? Or is it just like, just do it a college try and keep trying until something happens? Like, what would you tell someone who came to you and said, like, Seth, like, what do I need to do to start figuring out soloing?
To start figuring out soloing, like in jazz and improv, I think that the number one thing that people need to to do is really understand the language by listening to it, and by listening to recordings. I've done so much listening. When I was at SMC, and I was doing the jazz band there, I had thankfully enough, I had Glenn McFarland right next to me. Yeah, I know, obviously. Right? So a little sophomore me was like a little intimidated, or by him and his playing. And but
grown me is intimidated by his playing.
Yeah, I know. So he still does. He still does to this day.
Like, young and old alike are intimidated by Glenn McFarland's playing. Everyone,
right? Yeah. So growing up, he showed me like a lot, a good amount of records, and then I would ask him questions, like, what was that you just did, and he was kind of like my mentor at the time, growing up throughout SMC, showing me stuff and everything, and. That he really like inspired me for sure to keep going with jazz and learn more about it. And he would turn me on to a bunch of records, and I would do my own self-exploring into a lot of different records. I would say the first person I really looked up to as far as a great was I listened to a lot of Coltrane. I think when I first started, I listened to a lot of Coltrane, and even before that, I listened to a lot of Michael Brecker, because Michael Brecker is insane as far as his technical abilities go, and he has a great imagination in terms of what he plays.
Every time I listen to it, like, this is not something you're ever going to do, Andrew. Just enjoy it. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Yep, you're right. You're correct.
Yeah. So
so just listening is the main thing.
Exactly. Yeah, and hearing and not just passive. This is kind of something I talked to some of my students about. There's a very big difference, in terms of passion, or like passive listening versus like really intimately like listening to the music and what they're doing. So I kind of made this reference, like it's almost like, when you're washing dishes and you have your TV playing like a TV show in the background, you're kind of watching it, but you really don't know what's really happening.
Right.
I think that's like a lot of people do to, music, just in general. I think when you're playing in the car and you're not really listening to it, there's two very different things when it comes to really listening to it, really listening to the music and dissecting what they're doing, and how the drummer is communicating with the pianist, how the bassist is communicating with the drummer, vice versa, to anybody in that group.
Yeah.
So that, I think I stress it a lot to my students that it's really important to look at music like that, to really learn from it like that. So yeah, I would say listening to the music and really listening to it, that was really kind of what had me started on really understanding what the language was.
Yeah.
And also, transcribing is very, very important. And transcribing by ear, as much as you can. When I grew up, I had these Omni books that was given to me by Greg Noble, who is Christy Noble's wife down shout out to Christy and Greg down in Mishawaka. And Greg gave me a bunch of these Omni books that was like a whole tote full of Omni books, and it was like anywhere from like Sonny Rollins, Sonny Stitt, John Coltrane, Charlie Parker. It was crazy. I had like a field day for like over a while just checking those solos out. But I think it's really important to learn these by ear, because I think you internalize it a lot better, and also developing your ear, like when you're soloing over a tune on stage, and you can really hear the change and where to go, and when the change comes.
That's the thing that's always been interesting to me. When you're soloing, there is obviously, you're thinking about what you're doing and what you're about to execute. How keyed in are you to the band and how they're playing while you're soloing? Are you very much like, you're very mindful of what they're doing and how they're working, so that way like, I'm going to do these things over on top of them and stuff like that. So what's that like for you?
So, well, I'll say, like, when I'm soloing, I really tune into I tune in a lot to the drums. I would tune a lot to the ride and the hi-hat, because they're giving you the time right then and there, so and time and rhythm is the most important thing in music, for sure.
Yeah, it is.
And that's where I have my time right there, along with the bass player, and I have, when I get my ideas, I really like playing with a rhythm section that's giving me ideas, like, as I go. Like, if the piano player will comp like a riff or something, I'll try and grab that and try and communicate with him back and forth as I'm soloing. Or if my trumpet player just got done soloing and he had a riff at the very end that I really, really liked, then I'll take that riff to start off my next solo. I always love that
when someone does call and response like that, where they
exactly
listen to somebody and actually do it. That's cool.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's really cool, and it makes the music flow more. I think it gives each other and the band like a lot of different ideas too when you're doing that. So
oh gosh, I just think in my experiences with soloing, I mean, as a singer, it's like I feel like I've only touched the surface of what's possible. Like, I remember when I got into listening to scat singers, especially, and listening to them and how they would do it, and I would go like, this is bizarre.
Yeah.
It is so alien. I remember the first time I even listened to someone scat sing, I was like, what are they doing? I can do that. And then now fast forward to where, like, I hear these 4 chords. I know these are the places that I can go. I can go here. I can do this scale or this arpeggio, or I can do this note, and I know it's going to land over here. So,
exactly.
And then being able to listen to your band and being able to hear what they're doing and then be a part of that. That's what I love about AFQ. That's what I love about that band.
Yes.
Because it's like, here I can, they're doing their thing. It's almost like fun for me, because they play differently every time we get together. So it's like a new experience every time. But generally speaking, there's like this fun, aspect to it. And transition from that, which I have to say, my banner AFQ, it is cool that we are kindred spirits. In a matter of speaking, is that we both have bands that are named after us, because we're so vain and we clearly are that awesome that we deserve to have. So with all that said, so you have your own quartet, the Seth Kalina Quartet.
That's right.
So when did you guys form? Have you guys been playing together?
So we've been playing together ever since I got up to Michigan State.
Nice.
Well, I like I was talking to you about this before the podcast. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want my name to be named after me.
Yep.
You know,
Of
because
course.
you know it's just like I don't know. I just didn't really want it to be that.
It's
But
all for the acronym, everyone. That's what
yeah,
it's for.
right.
Pretty much.
So I was, you know, me and my bandmates were trying to find names. You know, and I really wasn't falling in love with any of these names. And then it wasn't
Yeah.
until I think it was either my bass player or my drummer was like, just just call it Seth Kalina Quartet. Just do it. Just call it
Just like-
SKQ.
Just call it that.
Right.
You know, I feel like it weirdly enough, it is you. I remember when we were thinking about our name, it was like the same trail of like, what do we call ourselves? What weird name were we gonna pick? We're gonna call the whatever the heck's like,
Right.
whatever we're the Blue Notes or the Brohemes or the Bohemian. Like what? Oh, God, there's so many. No offense to anybody who has those names in
Yeah,
their band. It's anything. Naming a band is hard. Like what?
Very true.
Because you're like, this is going to be the thing everyone will call us for
Exactly.
all perpetuity until the universe explodes. But that's one thing to be said though, that one of the things that I enjoy the most, knowing that your group is what it is.
Mhm.
Every one of the things that has been the most fascinating experience I ever have whenever I go out in public and perform with my group. They hear the name the Andrew Fisher Quartet, and then normally I get asked, where's the fourth one? And I'm like, no, I am one of the four.
Right.
Like, yes, I get I'm the singer up front, but there's four people.
Right.
It's a quartet. I usually know that, and this is more of a singer problem than anything else, everyone, because we singers have a reputation for just taking stuff. And you usually have Andrew Fisher and the name of the person up front and
Right.
which I've always felt weird about. But that was something that I always enjoyed about it being called the Andrew Fisher Quartet is, yes, it's my name, but I am one of these.
Exactly.
I'm one of the four. I'm not, as much as I am physically up front,
Mhm.
I feel bad because I block Glenn's view of the audience all the time. But no, there is something to be said about having a group like that. So you guys have been playing since you've been at Michigan.
Yep.
So I think you guys have been doing a lot of stuff. Like,
Yeah, we've been doing a good handful of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always trying to book. I'm always trying to find venues, you know, and opportunities to play. You know, but it really all started, you know, our grade. I love our grade. You know, especially just specifically our year. You know,
Wait, what's your graduation year? Because I have to.
It's 2020. It would be 28. But so
class of 2028 is the best music class apparently.
Yeah. I mean, it rocks. I mean, I really, especially just our year of, you know, cats at MSU. They're great people. You know, I have a lot of fun, you know, with our class. I'm friends with like everybody in our class, you know, as far as the jazz studies program goes. Great people.
Sweet.
And so this really all started, you know, freshman year. You're just looking for people to play with, you know, and people to jam with. And then, you know, my drummer Sam Melkonian came around, and then Charlie Snyder, my bass player, and then, you know, Mick Hansen came around a little bit later, and then Jacob Tolentino, you know, who's now my roommate now at Michigan State. You know, and we're all just trying to, you know, experience the campus together. We all grew up in the same, you know, dorm. And so yeah, we're just trying to check out Michigan State together, trying to play together. And then we were really like gung ho about wanting to play together outside of, you know, the combo rooms. You know? So yeah.
What's it been like? Because was it 2 years now you guys have been active?
I think about 2 years.
About 2 years now?
Yeah.
What have you experienced? I have my experience of like when it first started to versus now, which is a night and day difference. And granted, I have 10 years now. Oh God, it's so weird to say that. 10 years. It's weird. Anyway.
Yeah.
But there's one thing there's one thing to find the musicians, but then when you get to work together and you grow together, what's it been like for you 2 years now that you guys have been playing together as a band, the cohesion?
It's been really cool, especially because everybody's in school, everybody's, you know, constantly learning, everybody's constantly like taking in more information and taking in ways like different ways to play, you know. So it's really cool getting. I'm looking forward when I get back from break. I'm on my way back up to Michigan State tomorrow morning. So
which is why we did this today, because I was like, you're leaving to go back up. We're gonna do this interview today, so let's go.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect timing. Thank God.
So Yeah, I'm really looking forward to going back and playing with them because I don't, everybody's been practicing so much, and I want to hear all the new ideas, and I want, everybody's learning tunes like
That's
all the
awesome.
time, and getting to play new tunes together. I mean, yeah, that's just the stuff I look forward to the most. And we played at a good handful of events. We played a few times at Urban Beat up in Lansing, and that was our debut. It was at Urban Beat up in Lansing, and let's see here. We played at the Salvation Army event that
Oh yeah, that's
I
right.
think that I think you referred me to.
That's right. Because they were like, "Can you do it?" I was going like, "No, I can't." But there is this other person who would be phenomenal
Right.
for what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, 'cause
Very
you've done.
thankful for
What
that.
would be what would you consider one of your highlighted gigs that you guys get to do?
Oh.
Where you're just like, we got to do this, freaking awesome, whether it be the gig or just be like, this was like the time that everything gelled perfection, and it was
Right.
like one of the biggest nights where we were like, yeah, I think we just played the best we've ever played.
Yeah. Well, I think. Oh gosh, it probably would have had to been. We played a lot of good stuff at the Salvation Army event, the gala. We
Yeah.
played a lot of good stuff. We were kind of, and the setting was kind of background music for everybody who was kind of eating and visiting with one another. But man, we were playing some really good background music. Don't
Yo,
get me wrong.
do not sleep on playing those gigs
Yes.
ever. And the reason why not is because I've had the same experience where I get hired to play for a non-fundraiser or for a fundraiser or for a nonprofit organization or something where you're not really there to be on stage, be the main thing
Right.
people come to see.
Right.
But there was one time I did a small little gig with a couple players, Becky Selvage, I remember her, and Glenn and Carol folks, where we played at it was in a gym.
Yeah.
Jim Allen was there.
Really?
Yeah, it was this very like, here's a bunch of professional people just coming together to play at a high school. It was like at a school gym, but for some
my
reason we all were like, we're just gonna have fun.
Yeah.
And we just soloed. Everyone was taking turns soloing. Becky and I were scatting. Jim was doing stuff. Glenn was always doing stuff. And it was for some reason there are times where just to ask you this, because that to me means that you guys are in it for the joy of the music.
Yes.
Because I know musicians who get these gigs and go like, all right, we're gonna go play at this nonprofit little thing. Let's go play the 8 songs everybody likes, and then we're just gonna play music, and then whatever, we're getting paid.
Right.
But to do something like that and then come back from be like, yeah, that was so much fun.
Yeah.
Like that, to me, that tells me that when you do gigs, it's not necessarily about like, there are times where I do think about where I am and what the thing is, but there's some times where it's just like, I don't care. Yeah. I'm just going to come and play and have fun and be with the people that I enjoy being with. So clearly that's what you guys are like. So when you guys are playing that stuff, do you kind of walk into the Salvation Army gig? Because I think it was specifically a fundraiser event, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Did you guys approach it going like, this is an opportunity where we're just going to have fun, play together, and just like, whatever happens, or did you like go walk in there going like, obviously you're not going to play like super loud or anything,
right?
But you're still like, what was that like? Like,
well,
or any other gig you guys do? Like, how do you approach them?
Well, I mean, as far as preparation in terms of these gigs, I'll make my set list and I'll give them to the people in preparation for the gig, and I'll have maybe a rehearsal, maybe 2 if it's a lot, it's a longer set, I'll do 2 and make sure we have all of it. But and as far as the songs that we'll do a lot of jazz standards, a lot of American songbook standards, and whatnot. And I really, well, as far as just talking about the Salvation Army gig, it was so like when I was telling it to the guys in the group, they were like more excited that because the venue was like the Black House Barn in South Haven, and I'm showing them like for the first time I'm showing them like, hey, yeah, this is where we're gonna be playing in like a month or 2. They're like, oh my god, that is crazy. Awesome. Like, how did you pull this off? But it was that's
another thing too. You get to play some very fascinating places when you do those types of work, because you think like, oh, I'm gonna do a concert at this venue, but then like you get asked to play at this like for this company or this nonprofit, and then they decide to shack up in like the most beautiful place, and you're like, All right. Let's hit it then. We're gonna take advantage of this, everyone.
Yeah, no.
That's awesome.
And then I was like showing them like the meals, like like they were we were thankful that they fed us there at the venue, and there
Really
were
great
just
thing, by
some
the way.
really great food, like amazing food.
That's another thing about doing those gigs too. You get good food sometimes.
Yes,
Cool.
absolutely. So yeah, I think just like I was saying, the vibe between the group and the venue, and the people were digging it, even though it was background music. At points when they're all done with their dinner, they all turned their chairs and they were checking us out, and yeah, it was very cool. Like we played what was that tune? Da, 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 da. This was the Roaring Twenties Gala, so we were playing a lot of 20s music.
When the Saints
exactly.
So you doing we do like second line, or you doing it like that Orleans style?
Yeah. Well, we were exactly. Yeah.
That's public domain. It should be by now, I think.
Right.
No, but yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. And like my idea, I had it right on the spot. We never talked about this any time before the gig. But I was talking to my trumpet player after the break, right when we're about to go on. I was like, do you want to and this is like the beauty about jazz, you could do literally anything that you could put your mind to. So I was like, okay, do you want to turn this into like a ballad, and do we just play off each other for like the first time we play the theme, like you play the theme on trumpet and then I'll play behind you, like in typical like New Orleans like fashion. And then he was like, I don't know if that'll sound right. I'm like, just trust the process. Trust the process. And I think that's gonna turn out really good. So we played it, and then I counted off the group, and we were just like, when the Saints go marching, it was a really cool vibe.
See, we're in transitions. It's so fun when we do that. I don't know why. There's something so satisfying when you figure out the perfect transition from one song to the next, especially if you're like able to change the key just right, and you just have the perfect. Oh, there's something so satisfying about that. I'm sorry. That's literally just like you just scratch the back of my ear, going like, oh, a great transition. But man, that is. Okay, I've been trying my best not to bring this up, but you're only 19 years old. The fact that you're doing that, when I was 19, I don't even think that was even in my brain area code of having that type of conversation with a musician. Like, hey, you want to try doing this tonight? Oh yeah, we'll just try and see how it goes. Okay. It's like I'd be like, excuse me? You're not going to just talk to me right before we go out and then change stuff and then do something different? Like first of all, I wasn't even doing any of this type of music when I was 19 anyway, so it doesn't even matter. But it's not fair. By the way, I'm going to pat myself on the back. I told myself, I was like, all right, Andrew, this entire interview can't be about how awesome he is and how young he is, because that's not the point. So I'll just say this, I'm going like, I just have to give myself a brief window. I'm going like, y'all, this kid's only 19, y'all. Like, which, by the way, that makes me realize that when I met you, you were like 17.
I think I was the first Andrew the first Andrew Fisher Stevie Wonder gig I played. I think it was.
Can't, man. I can't. It's just you were what I was doing at 17 years old was not even. And and in all honesty, I have to tell you, I'm more impressed about how you carried yourself more than how you played, because once again, there was something to be said that you're able to. Because I mean, virtually everybody who's in that room anyway. Because you have Glenn, you have Mark, Tom is there,
all these people,
Bruce is there, everyone's there. Is who is Mike is there, everyone's there who is amazing in their own right. And here you come, D, everybody. I'm just 17, rolling on through, just showing up out of the blue because one guy said this kid's coming to play, and there have been, and I don't mean to say this like, oh, we're this elite group or anything, but there definitely is. Which, by the way, it is very fascinating how you said like, yeah, we just did 2 rehearsals and we did the show. Because most people be like, you only did 2? I'm going like, well, when you have people that are at a certain level, because that's how we do the Stevie show. In fact, we normally do 1. Because that's how it works. And that's the reality of it, because you can't always get together all the time. But there is something to be said. And the only reason, by the way, everyone at home playing the home game in this, the only reason why you can do that specifically is because you trust everyone's going to work
Exactly.
before they come.
Exactly.
The only way that happens ever is because everybody is on the same page. We all know that we're going to practice. We all know that we're going to show up because we're specifically just going to bring it all together.
Right.
No one's learning their part because they've already learned it because they did the work outside of it. So that genuinely is if anybody wants to know the secret to how you can do a good rehearsal, you just practice before you get there.
That's true.
Which and for those of you who are like, well, I didn't have time, I will tell you this right now. I have crammed so often before going to rehearsal, and it still is way better than just not doing anything. So, but there's something to be said about having that camaraderie with your group, which, by the way, the thing I wanted to tell you as you were talking about your group is there is something so special about when you're working with people that way, where you guys are all doing you have your own individual skills that you're working on, and then you come together and bring it together, which is why I feel so blessed to have the 10 years that I have with this AFQ, because even the members in the group who aren't in it anymore, like I have special relationships with, because there is something unique about a group of people who all decide at the same time, we're going to not only dive super deep into this music, but we're all going to work our butts off,
right?
Because we care, and it's not for nothing else, because we care, because we respect it, not because anybody has the ego to say I want to be better than you or I need to be out in the limelight to shine,
right?
It's specifically because we love, like the reason why the Stevie Wonder tribute concert even happened was specifically because we loved his music so much.
Yeah.
We were already diving into Stevie Wonder's anthology to the point where we're going like, we're already playing like 5 of these. So we just have to add an extra 15.
Right.
We got a 2-hour show, everyone. But genuinely speaking, there's something to be said about that. And I have to ask that question with you, your guys, and maybe other people you've had this interaction with. But what is that? There's something to be said about that relationship. And then, so how is that for you, knowing that when you come to rehearsal with your guys, that you know everybody's been doing what they're supposed to do, and then all you're doing is just playing?
Right. I think that, well, everybody's in school, like with the vibe of my group and everything. I know that everybody's constantly learning because everybody's in university. Everybody's taking the same improv classes. Everybody's taking the same music theory. So everybody's on the same page, and everybody can really understand as far as the music that we're playing. And we have in our improv class, I think at the time of that gig, I was calling a lot of tunes from the improv class from my freshman year, because I knew for sure that everybody was on that same page. Everybody knew those tunes, and everybody would feel the most comfortable. That's why I think, like, in terms of making the set list, I really think about, okay, with where my group is at, I want to play tunes that I know that everybody's going to be wanting to be comfortable with. And, maybe I'll pick like maybe a tune or two that, like, okay, you're going to have to really kind of look over this, But I try and pick tunes that are kind of not so far out there, but more kind of, the I would say almost mainstream, tunes that almost everybody should know as far as standards go. But, but just I would say we don't really talk about, in rehearsals, we talk about more about how we're going to play this, talking about like how we do an arrangement of a piece,
right.
How we're going to start it, how we're going to end it, what I'm going to do, like, okay.
Which, by the way, you can't get to that until everyone's done the work first.
Exactly.
Because if you don't do that, you can't discuss the arrangement. If you decide to say this time, let's do it a ballad instead of it being a bebop, let's do it in calypso, or we can do it as a swing, or we could do it in we could do it as a regular standard or whatever, or ballad or whatever. So that you can't get to that until everyone's in the work beforehand.
Right.
So that's what you guys are discussing when you guys are together.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. It's about how how to start the tune. If I want my trumpet player to like kind of mimic me or do some things behind me while I'm playing the head, or even if I want to like give him a feature to a tune by himself and I won't even play at all on it, or it could be something like that too. Or if I'll have a feature I don't want to play, it's just like all these different things, those are the things that we talk about a lot in rehearsal,
There is something that I actually wanted to read to you.
Yeah.
Because I did talk to your mom for a little bit. I don't know if she probably told you. I don't know if she did or not.
She did. I think she did.
Did she? I was like, I didn't tell her not to tell you, but I was like, I wonder if she's going to tell you or not. I was asking her questions. So I want to know a little bit more about her baby and just to get a little bit. No, but there was something that she actually said Because there are way more of the questions I was going to ask you, but I told myself, let's just go down the rabbit hole, see what happens. I need to find it because she wrote a lot. All right, so I'm going to read you something that she said. And you can respond however you want to.
Okay.
To hear Seth talk about music and to watch him play with his eyes closed from his heart, I just know this is what he was meant to do. Whether he's teaching another eager young person or he's up on stage, this is what he's meant to do. I've known that ever since he was in grade school. Meant to be on stage. We are beyond proud of how far he has come and how passionate he still is about his playing. So I just want to ask you, what is your reaction to your mom saying that about you? Because she said in that one paragraph, and she wrote way more, to hear you talk about music and to watch you play, that's two completely different dichotomies. Because one of it's you executing, one is you just talking about it, and then to see you on stage and to know that this is what you were meant to do. How does it make you feel hearing that?
It makes me feel, obviously, very thankful, and also that it makes me feel nice that I give that, that idea that this is like, to my mother, to anybody who's looking at and listening to me, that this is where I belong in this, performing this music. And it gives me a very nice feeling that's how that this is where I'm meant to be, and I don't think I have any idea of changing about what I want to do at this point.
Sometimes I'm like, what else could I do?
Right. I really have no idea.
But that feeling I don't know what your journey has been. I know for me, sometimes I think about there are many things. I don't think there are a lot of different things I was thinking about before I got to music specifically, but there are definitely other ideas I would have thought that in my life, even in music, I kind of thought a little bit differently about some of the things I would have done.
Right.
But to get to that place where I'm like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And no matter what's happened, and life has happened where I can't, right now I have a family, so I can't do as much as I used to in the last couple of years. But even still, there's this feeling of yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Do you? Yeah. I doubt you see yourself doing anything else.
No, I don't think so. I just performing this music and then also teaching has been my two passions for pretty much my whole life.
Wow. So, where do you see yourself going? Where is there any? Is there somewhere you want to be, or are you just going I just want to be able to keep doing what I'm doing, no matter where it's at?
I think I want to stay in Michigan.
Really?
I do. There's a lot of, I actually talked to my prof about this, the lesson we had before going on break. She was like, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? So a lot of people in my grade, a lot of people in the jazz studies, community and major, they all talk about, we want to go to New York, straight to New York, no questions asked, and that's great. I mean, that's awesome. But I think in my path, I think that well, first of all, New York, I think to me is a little intimidating right now.
It's always been intimidating. I don't think it's ever intimidating.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I think I would like to stay in Michigan, close to family and friends, and I've made so many friends and peers and people and connections with different venues in Michigan, that having this idea of starting completely over to you don't know anybody at all in New York is kind of nerve-wracking to me. So if anything, I would like to go to Detroit, and I would like to perform in Detroit because Detroit has an amazing jazz scene.
Absolutely.
So I would like to perform in Detroit more and get to know people out in Detroit more. Absolutely. And then I would love to settle down and, to be at a teaching, job, whether that be, I'll probably start at a public, high school, to start middle school, high school, and then with my music I'm adding a music education degree. I can't remember if I told you or not.
No, I wasn't sure were you doing performance or education.
Yeah,
I was thinking you were doing one or the other or both.
Right. Well, I was thinking about just doing a jazz studies, but I was talking to my prof about it, and you can get a university, job with just jazz studies, but it's so competitive.
Oh yeah.
So I was
Yeah,
like,
it's competitive unless you happen to be the best saxophone player ever.
yeah.
Then people, the institutions are calling you.
Right. Right. Well, but I just
No, for
think
real.
that,
Yeah, I get that
starting
though.
off, in a public university and getting that,
Yeah.
on your resume that you taught, at this place, a public school for this long, before going to the university, because I want
Mhm.
to teach like right after college. I don't really want to go to like, a different, I guess job, other than teaching.
You know what you know what you're doing.
Right.
It sounds like you know what you want to do. I will selfishly say I'm glad you're making that decision only because that means you could be here more and I get to work with you more. Yes!
Right.
I was like, because if you would have said like I want to go to New York, I'd have been like, yeah, you need to go. I get it. Yes, please go to Europe because that is literally where the altar of jazz lives now is in
Right.
Europe. I get it. Like you got to go explore the world. I'll miss you, bud. But you're like,
Right.
Sammy's like, yes. Which to
Right.
be said, I will say this, and my experience has been there have been times in my life earlier on where I was like, maybe I should go out and do this, and there were a couple. I will say there were some years where I wondered, should I have
Mm.
gone and done, this or or should I have when I was younger? Well, I'm 36, so I'm not an old person by any means, or like my world is done. But there are definitely moments I think back, like when I had more time
Mm-hmm.
in my early 20s. Should I have, picked up and moved to New York or LA
Right.
or something? And there is something to be said about being rooted in a community
Mm-hmm.
and you just know everybody and you know
Right.
everything and you know where the good venues are and you know where the good musicians live. I
Right.
feel like my connections with SMC, with Andrews, even with LMC, with the other schools, even with Western and some of the other
Mm-hmm.
local schools around here and some of the places I've been able to do with for years, I feel like, why do I need to go out
Right.
somewhere when through SMC alone, I have experienced so many fantastic musicians
Oh, right.
from
Right.
Western, from Michigan, from their South Bend. There
Mm-hmm.
is even from like, there are places that are here that I get to hear the fact, like the going to Merriman's, for example.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine, like, what am I gonna get differently just going somewhere else? I don't know, but
Right.
being in this place and having these experiences, and especially the ones that I can say, like, I have, like the fact that here's this wall where I have 10 years worth of experience with these people,
Right.
where I'm like, I wouldn't have that if I went to New York, probably.
Right.
Like, I'd probably be in a band, I'd probably be doing something, but, so-and-so came from some other place and their lives changed, so they had to go leave and do something else, and
Right.
or we all coming here and there's now, instead of one Andrew, there's like a million of me. So then now I'm gonna have to compete with the other big dudes that look like me, who sing like me, and it's not gonna be, I'm gonna have a
Right.
harder time. But it seems very obvious to me that you kind of know what you're doing. Like,
Right.
you know exactly
True.
what
It's
your
very true.
path, which some people may say, like, you should be open and just who knows. But honestly, I think a lot of times, knowing what you want to do is, I think, the most amazing and in all honesty most adventurous thing, because now you
Right.
know what you're focusing on.
Right.
You know what you're
Very true.
putting all the energy towards. And how long have you been teaching again? Because I think you started pretty early.
I started, my first, this is my first ever like real teaching experience. I was actually substituting for my band director for his middle school like classes after school.
How old were you?
I think I was like, I was thinking I was 14 or 15.
Of course.
So I was
Of course
like,
you were. Of
it
course
was
you were
a-
freshman.
That's that was like a really cool,
Oh,
like, that's why I
wow.
really wanted to like keep going with teaching music, was that, I was like, he was out for maternity leave, and I had like, and this is how I got my community service hours actually,
Good job. Very smart.
yeah, the real substitute was like just in the back of the band classroom, and he was just like, all right, just do your thing.
Do you think, dude?
So
That's
I would
cool.
go up there and I would rehearse everybody for, it was like, and it was cool. I had the opportunity to teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, right back to back,
Wow.
and it was a really cool
Sheesh.
experience.
So you just do one, you did multiple grades.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So everybody had their own
man.
different music, and my band director, kind of showed me around like where everything was, like where all the scores were. So yeah, I would rehearse them for like a good, I think it was about a week, maybe a week and a half, and that was by far one of the coolest experiences, that I've had. That I one of the most most memorable ones as far as teaching. But I've had some private. I do private study,
Right.
student lessons. And I've been doing that since my senior year of high school. And whether it's students getting ready for salon ensemble,
Wait, when did you graduate from high
is
school?
2024.
Sweet Lord. Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So,
That was like, how long ago was that? Last year? Yeah, God, I forgot. Forgot how young you are. No, but that's honestly, what is your? I know I was about to ask you your last question, but I got to ask you this person since we're talking about it. What is it that you love about teaching? Is there something that specifically that you just get something out of it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I think that when it comes to teaching students, and they're so, it's the best thing when the students are so curious and so open to learning, like what new things about music, about the learning, like even the questions about saxophone in general. Like when they're so motivated to learn, and then when I can provide them that information, as to like what they want to learn, and be able to help them in their path to be a better saxophonist or better musician in general. I think that's just the coolest thing, seeing like their faces light up, after I give, or after I show them something that they haven't learned before on the saxophone. But yeah, or even showing them like a new piece of music that they've been really checking out and tuning into. So yeah, that's definitely been my highlight. That's why I want to be teaching, for sure.
It's so fun to hear you talk about, not just, it's one thing to talk about the playing and how much you love it and how much you enjoy it, but to hear you talk about the ability to part that onto somebody else, that there are some times I meet people, and the funny thing is, I'm saying this because I know people have had the same thought towards me. They're like, I wonder what's going to happen to Andrew after. Like, hope you turn out to be okay, bud. And there's a lot of people in my family who are going like, thank God Andrew now is okay, because I have my life. But honestly, it's like, there are times where I meet people and I go like, you know what? I'm interested to find out what their journey is going to be like.
Right.
And not to say that anything negative or positive about it, but just like, I'm fascinated to see what's going to happen. Because it's like, and my journey is definitely like, if you ever hear, one of these days I'll tell you my whole life story.
Yeah.
But it took some turn. Like, my path to music was a very, very windy path. I went to very different area codes first, and then finally got on it, and I was like, "Ooh!" I feel like by the time you're at this place right now, I didn't feel where you are until I was about 26. So you got a good almost decade on me, guy. It's not fair. It's not fair at all, which is fine. Which I will say, we all come to the path on our own time and our own terms. I went through life in a very interesting way that I needed to happen the way that it did. But it's very clear to me that you are on a path that you clearly see the value of every facet of which. I will tell you this: if you ever have a question on like, am I ever going to be successful at this? I'm telling you right now, it will be impossible for you not to be. And the reason why is because you're not. It'd be one thing if you cared a lot about the execution of performance.
Right.
And I know lots of musicians who that's what they fixate on. And I get it. And I totally understand why that's the mountain that they choose to climb. And they're very focused on it. And one could even argue, like, what is it like to be someone who focuses on one thing specifically and pursues it, and then you become the best at it, which is, I can understand that idea. But I find those who have the most success are the people who can find how to love the diversity of that aspect.
Oh, right.
You love the performing, you love the studying, you love the teaching part of it, and that encompasses every part of it. The idea that you find the value of being in a place that if someone were to look at the globe and look at different areas on the planet, they wouldn't pick this area for music. They wouldn't pick this, for those of you playing, once again, if I'm looking at the camera, so this would be this part of Michigan. No one would point to this area for music anyhow. But the fact that you find value means to me that I feel that there are people, not just in music, but in art in general, when you can attach your enjoyment away from what you get externally
Mm-hmm.
from other people and from the circumstances, which I will tell you, it's great. Like you said at the beginning, there is something about the audience being able to get what you're doing and
Exactly.
vibe with it that is, I chase it. I do chase it, but in a very holistic way, I feel, where it's not irresponsible, hopefully, but there is something so magical about that. But there is
Yeah.
also something so magical about teaching somebody and they get it, or talking to somebody about music and
Yeah.
and their eyes light up, or being able to nerd out about a Coltrane lick and then just be like, yeah, man, just like I use it this way.
Right.
And so like, oh, we
Yeah.
are kindred spirits. We genuinely are. And I feel like if I ever had a little brother, I would want you to be that little brother. Because I'd be like, that's honestly how I feel. Because honestly, that's how I feel. I feel like, honestly, I feel the same way about Bruce and Glenn. I can't dust it because he's older than me. But like, as I felt about Glenn, when I met Glenn, I was just going like, dude, like to see. He works harder than all of us combined and does way more amazing things than I told him, like, you need to leave. You need to get out of here.
Right.
No, I hope he doesn't either. But just, yeah, man. So the last question I ask everybody is, because one of the things I hope, if there's anybody who's watching this or listening to this, they glean things, which I know they're going to glean a ton of stuff from what you said this whole time. But the last question I always ask is, and honestly, I've asked it in a very specific way, and it's interesting because the way I've asked it has been, if you could talk to your younger self, you're kind of still there. I mean, like, but in this context, I'll say it like this: if someone came to you and asked, what would you say would be a thing or multiple things to start to try to want to be in this world of music that you're in, what would you say to that person? What would be the thing that you would pick as, this is what you need to have? And it could be one thing or it could be a couple things, and it doesn't have to be like the obvious thing, it could be the not obvious thing.
Right.
But what would be the thing that you would pass on to someone to say, this is what you need to do to start, or what you would need to do to be in this craft?
To be able to perform this music, I think that some things that you would need to do is to just be a genuine, good, honest human being. I mean, that's one of the most important things, as far as, being in this world of music. You need to be a great, I think you just need to be a great person all around, great fun, personality and everything, all those things combined. Number two, you need to know how to play to a certain extent. I mean, this is a kind of given, but I think that you need to be up on your study, and you need to put in the hours, in the shed, and you need to be able to, be worthy of trying to play this music, especially be worthy of playing jazz. It's such an intimate, hard music to be able to play and to master. And, I think that you need to, by any means, when I say that, I'm not saying by any means I'm a master at all of playing this music. I think that I'm only just,
I think we will always be students. We will always be learning and finding out more about it. I think that is something that will happen until you die, and then the next generation will pick up from where you left off, and they will continue forward. So that is always a thing. We will always be students for the rest of the time.
Exactly. Yeah. And I would definitely say, having a certain level of motivation for this music goes so much of a long way. You need to be motivated to want to wake up every day and want to, put in the hours in on playing the horn, and look forward to the outcomes, after the year, the hours that you put in the shed. So, just trying to stay, there's a lot of discipline, I'm sure you can agree, that goes into behind, just trying to play this music.
Discipline knows my struggle.
Yeah, I know. I know it.
If anyone would know how many last minute cramming sessions I still do to learn those lyrics and learn that music, and oh my gosh,
right?
Discipline is a big thing.
Yes,
for sure.
Yeah, it's a very hard world to try and get started in, but I do think that once you have that motivation, and once you want to have that discipline to really be at to play music like at a high level, I think that then you'll be set. I mean, that's pretty much it, I think.
Cool. Seth, dude, I knew this was going to be a good conversation.
Yes, it really was.
The only thought I had was like, I wonder what we would talk about, because I didn't know what it was going to be. I didn't know exactly what, but honestly, Seth, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Lounge. And I will say this right now, I don't know what the order of the release of the episodes will be just yet, but this is the first interview since the hiatus of the show.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's a good list of people I had, but I was like, you were one of the reasons why I wanted to start the podcast back up again. There are a couple other people. Mark is another person, by the way.
Yeah.
Where I was like, there are just these people I know who I just want to talk to, and I think everybody needs to freaking hear these people's thoughts.
Right.
But appreciate you coming on the Backstage Lounge.
Yeah. And there's one more thing. I'm not sure if there's when the release, like what you're saying of this episode would be, but we are gonna have the thing coming up.
Yeah. We'll finally be doing. I mean, I'm looking forward to doing this because I'm looking forward to doing this gig with you because I want to experience what it's like to be in the Seth Kalina quartet.
Yes,
and see you run. And I'm coming in as just like, I am the singer. You tell me what you want to do.
Yep.
Which I'm looking forward to doing this, man.
I know. Really, me too. I mean, this is something that we just finalized it the other day with the folks at Merriman's Playhouse, and it's gonna be Saturday, March 28th. Like I said, I don't know when the episode. We might even be done and over with this.
It may be. My goal was to get this get everything kicking and going by March anyway, which is in March, so we should.
Right.
So I'll make sure this episode sees light day before. If nothing else, I'll just clip this end and then put it out there.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. I am looking forward to it. Not even just the fact that we're playing at that space, which that space is so fantastic.
Yes.
But just being able to play with you, man. I know what it's already like to work with you, so I'm already just looking forward to it.
Yes.
And I don't even know what music you want me to do. Like, you just tell me. You tell me what you want, and I know I'm going to enjoy the heck out of it. Dude.
We're in the early stages of planning it, and getting everything together, but it's going to be a great time. It's really is.
Cool. Seth, I'm calling you my brother. My brother. No, seriously, dude. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And yeah, cool. That's it.
Yeah.
Peace. That was Seth Kalina. Whew, man, that was such a good conversation. I keep coming back to something he said about Walter Blanding. It wasn't about what Blanding taught him technically. It was about how he treated people every single day. And that's something I vibe with. And Seth said I wanted to do that. And I have to agree. That's the whole thing right there. Oh, he's 19 and he already knows that. And I didn't know that at 19. Man, I'm so glad he does. If this conversation meant something to you, share it with somebody who you would think it would mean something to them as well. That's honestly the whole point of this podcast, and that's what I want this to become. You can find the Backstage Lounge on Substack, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Pocket Cast, or wherever you listen to your podcast. I listen to Podcast Addict on my phone. Subscribe wherever you're listening to so you don't miss what's coming next. And of course, if you could leave me a review, leave me a comment, send me an email. I want feedback. I want to know what I could do more. I just want this to grow. Links are always going to be in the show notes. One more thing. Check the show notes. I put together some further reading and explanations of some of the names, terms, and concepts that we threw around in this conversation. I know it can be a little bit complex, but if you go to the show notes, I promise it'll be further explained. If something came up and you didn't know what we were talking about, the show notes have you covered. That's always going to be part of how we do this show. And I have to remind you one more time, Saturday, March 28th at Merriman's Playhouse in South Bend. Come out and see us live. You won't regret it. I'm Andrew Fisher. This is the Backstage Lounge, and we are back. I'll see you next time.